children, people of all kinds, whoever you are, everyone's welcome to this dojo. It's your boy Peter here, aka Peter Freakout 10, baby. Bringing you guys an episode of the Movie Review Show with the good movies always reviewed. Alright, back into our movie review. Now, on today's episode, we're taking a look at a film that takes on a genre with a director that I don't think anyone thought he would have ever took on. Especially when you look at his track record, or the other guy's track record, because it's actually two guys directing it. But with that track record, you've seen the films that he has taken on, and you would have thought that this would be the last genre you would ever see him going into. Especially when you look at the final product and what it consists of and its feel. At the same time, though, directors have been known to try and step out of their comfort zone and tackle genres that they're not used to. Some have worked, others not so much. And today's film is one of those examples. And what film is that, you may be asking? That film is none other than Titan AE. But does it all come together? Well, the only way to find out is to grab yourself a ship, a laser gun, and travel the far galaxies to get our answers as we talk Titan AE. Now, Titan AE, this is a film made in the year 2000, and it's directed by Don Bluth and Gary Goldman, who are two frequent collaborators and legends in the animation industry, with Don having gotten his start at Disney with Gary in the animation department, where the two formed a friendship and left Disney to create their own animation studio, where they worked on some of the most beloved classics in the animation industry, such as The Secret of NIMH, An American Tail, The Land Before Time, and All Dogs Go to Heaven. That last one, once again, I do prefer the second one. However, after that, he would start experiencing some duds with films like Rock-a-Doodle, A Troll in Central Park, and to some people, not me, The Pebble and the Penguin. But he managed to fix himself up by directing Anastasia in 1997, which many saw as a return to form for him. Now, that same year Anastasia came out also plays into the production of this movie. And what's interesting about the film itself is that it was actually not envisioned as an animated film. It starts from writers Hans Boyer, who the same year found success with the fun popcorn creature feature Anaconda, which, regardless how you feel about the movie, it still made money, and Randall McCormick, who didn't find as much success that year as he had written Speed 2 Cruise Control. Yeah. They had written a script, though, called Planet Ice, which essentially was the same story as the final film, but judging by the title, the planet would be made of ice, with Art Vitello, believe I'm saying his name right, producer of Tiny Toons Adventures, slated to direct for 20th Century Fox. However, realizing the ambitious nature of the script and the visual effects and how extreme the budget would be, they scrapped the idea and insisted that it would work better as an animated film, and decided to have the script reworked, bringing in Bev Edlund, writer of the Tick animated series, and before this had written ABC Manhattan, John August, who had previously worked on Go and is working on the upcoming Charlie's Angels movie, and Joss Whedon, who started as a script doctor on sitcoms such as Roseanne and Parenthood before being upgraded to a writing job and worked on various 90s action films, including Toy Story, which surprised me. But probably his biggest achievement to many people would be Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the hit TV show. But they were brought in to revamp the script into something that could work in the bounds of an animated film. Fox okayed the script and allowed the film to move forward, with Art Vitello remaining on to direct. And they got their cast together, with a good chunk of them remaining from the original version in this one, with one exception. John Leguizamo was brought in for this film to replace the original actor Hank Azaria, who had worked with Dawn on Anastasia. Despite that, though, things started off rocky, as Art having him on became a mistake, because 18 months in, he was barely showing any progress on the film and was burning money doing nothing, so he was fired. Around Around this time, Don Bluth and Gary Goldman had finished up production on Bartok the Magnificent, and Fox saw this as an opportunity to get another film going, as he had given them a hit with Anastasia. But also around this time, Fox's animation studio wasn't in the best state, and they were on the verge of going into layoffs, and felt the best case scenario was that Don was going to helm this film. Both Don and Gary at first were a bit apprehensive at first about directing it, as both have been open about the fact that they are not fans of the sci-fi genre, but took the job to attempt to keep the company afloat. Now, a lot of people point to that as if they were forced to direct the film, when that's not entirely the case. As Don has also said, they also took the job to really expand their horizons and step into a genre that they had never stepped into before. So they weren't entirely forced. However, once they came on, Fox started to get more involved in the production. They had mandated that Titan AE would be distinct from other Disney features, as they wanted the film to appeal to a young adult demographic. And seeing the success of Toy Story, they insisted they would incorporate CGI into the film. On account of that, they were also given a 19-month production schedule, which was a tight deadline, but agreed to take the challenge, bringing in his animation team, who he had worked with on Anastasia, with a lot of the animation being done in 2D hand-drawn, and some areas would be CGI, which would be handled by Blue Sky. Things seemed to be going well for the group, but in the background, Fox Animation was on its last legs. And in the middle of production, seeing the fire spread, Fox cut the budget in half, meaning that a lot of ideas had to be cut, reworked, or achieved using CGI. The studio also found itself dealing with layoffs in the middle of production, with the number of layoffs reaching about 300 animators, which meant a lot of the animation that wasn't finished had to be outsourced. Because of this, the production budget ballooned to $19 million because of this chaos. Eventually, the film finished production, though, and because of the money ballooning to the amount that it was, the marketing ended up being restrained. With the movie having a Super Bowl ad, Dark Horse worked on a 3-issue comic book series, which I have right here. Those who want to see it. There were prequel books about the characters in the movie, and there was even a video game that was shown off at E3 2000. I know they had a song planned for the film, the I Am Over My Head. The ads would play the fucking Creed Higher song, which I actually liked the song. I thought it fit the film well. But I don't think that helped at the box office, because the movie opened on June 16, 2000, and it crashed and burned, opening to number 5, and grossed only over $9 million in its opening weekend. I think marketing played a big factor into why the film didn't do well, but I also think it faced competition from films like Shaft, which was released the same day, Gone in 60 Seconds, the remake with Nicolas Cage and Angelina Jolie, Big Mama's House, and Mission Impossible 2, which one of those is good. I don't know why Big Mama's House did better than fucking Titan AE. That pisses me off. But so it didn't even recoup half of its budget. It only made over $22 million, so it's a pretty big flop. And with that, the film also received mixed reviews from critics. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 51%, with critics praising the film for its visuals, some critics praising the film for its scale and story, something of which Roger Ebert pointed out in his 3.5 out of 4-star review. However, some critics who criticized the film found the story and characters largely forgettable. Despite this, audiences seem to enjoy the film, as on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 61% on the audience side, and on IMDb it has a 6.6 out of 10. I can see this film getting a cult following, and the audience who saw it and liked it definitely got the film more so than the critics. Now, this is a film that I was made aware of because of its trailer, and it surprised me that it even was Don Bluth, like I said. I never in a million years would ever see a Don Bluth movie that had Higher by Creed in its trailer or TV spot. That being said, before finding out that it was Don Bluth and Gary Goldman, I was actually intrigued. I thought it was a a cool idea for a movie to have an animated space action film. Besides Star Wars doing its own animated show, you don't see a movie doing its own thing like that. But I was really excited in checking the film out. Finding out that it was Don Bluth and Gary Goldman got me more interested. And I think my excitement was even more fueled when it was shown at the Super Bowl. Which the film bombing surprised me, especially when you had a Super Bowl spot for it, so you'd think that the public would be more aware of it and would have gotten the film more attention. But me and my friends, we decided to take a night out to check it out in June. And I gotta say, when we saw this film, I'm gonna say this, if this is Don Bluth's last film, he went out with a bang. I love this film, and I think it is probably one of the best animated films of the 2000s so far, and I think it's the best animated film of the year 2000. I think it's personally one of Don Bluth's best movies. I don't get people's complaints on it. I have my own cons with the film. No film is perfect, but to say some of the complaints that people have had about it, I don't get it. Compared to something like A Troll in Central Park or Rock-a-Doodle, this has a lot more ambition to it, and it shows that even when someone isn't as in love with the genre, bringing them into work with a genre like this and bringing their own ideas to the front can benefit the film. And having Don and Gary here, I think, paid off in the long run. And this film didn't deserve to bomb. It didn't deserve to kill the studio, because I think there's a lot on display with this film that deserves more recognition. I'll explain why later, though. But with the cast in this film, you got Matt Damon as the lead from Good Will Hunting and Dogma. You got Drew Barrymore from Poison Ivy, Batman Forever. She was in the opening of Scream, Never Been Kissed the year before this. And of course, like I said, speaking of Charlie's Angels, she's going to be in that. You got Bill Pullman from Casper, Spaceballs, and Lake Placid before this. You got Nathan Lane from The Lion King, The Birdcage. He was also the voice of Snowbell and Stuart Little. John Leguizamo from Carlito's Way. He was also Luigi in the Super Mario Brothers movie and Spawn. Janeane Garofalo, who had a small role in The Cable Guy, Rami and Michelle's High School Reunion, Mystery Men. She also had a small role in Dogma. I know that Kevin Smith has said that he wished he casted her instead of Linda Florentino, because Linda was a bitch to work with. But you also have small roles from people like Ron Perlman from The City of Lost Children and Alien Resurrection, Jim Brewer from Half-Baked, Tone Loc from Ace Ventura Pet Detective. You also have a small role from Alex D. Linz from Home Alone 3 and Tarzan. But yeah, you got a good cast at the disposal here. But getting into the film, the plot of the film is that it basically takes place in the year 3028, where humans are on the verge of extinction after an alien race called the Dredge blew up the planet Earth in fear that humanity will evolve ahead of them, as this man named Sam Tucker, played by Ron Perlman, invented this device that he codenamed the Titan Project. Since then, the human population has dwindled in numbers, and some are living in space or on desecrated planets. This is where we're introduced to Sam's son, Kale, played by Matt Damon, who has been living in space since the humans evacuated from Earth and has been doing odd jobs and getting into fights with aliens. This is where he meets Joseph, played by Bill Pullman, who is leading a crew on this ship called the Valkyrie. These include Akima, played by Drew Barrymore, Preed, played by Nathan Lane, Goon, played by John Leguizamo, and Stith, played by Janeane Garofalo. And he informs them that the Titan Project is all ready and is hidden, and that Kale has an encoded key on his ring that his father gave him that will lead them to the project, being that this will be their ticket to finding a new world and destroy the Dredge. Kale joins the team and they set off to get this project, all the while dealing with the Dredge, who are coming after them with everything they've got. Will the team be able to get to the project and find a new home, or will the Dredge succeed in getting them wiped out before they can find another home? Titan A is unique because, judging from the story, as I said, this wouldn't be a film you would see Don Bluth making. And on the surface, it may seem like every other sci-fi film from a storytelling perspective, but I feel there is some stuff that do make it stand out that I love. I like the setup with the villain, the Dredge, and how they kind of see how humans bring about their downfall, and so they destroy Earth, and how humanity has basically survived living in space. And then you meet this character, Kale, who is just trying to make ends meet and kind of feels like there's something greater out there with the promise of a world that could be another Earth. And I think the film does a great job getting you behind Cale, despite the film getting across him having a fuck you and cynical attitude. But the film really gets an arc going for him to look beyond being the fact that he is helping these people who are poor souls that have had it rough, despite at first not wanting anything to do with them. But he's never jerky about it. And it never feels like he's mean to a point that it comes across as unredeemable. And even once the new space pirates are revealed, each one of them feel like they're written with a sense of personality and likability, and can be really funny in some parts. I like the character of Stith, who is this kangaroo-like alien with a fierce temper and a strong kick to her, or even Akima, who becomes Cale's love interest. So the characters themselves are really likable and definitely have a sense of personality. Once even the Dresh are revealed, I like the creativity behind them as villains, with them not speaking in English and how they have this blue screen TV static glassy look to them. It's really beyond anything I've ever seen, and just how genocidal they are, and just the fact that the film has this early 2000s punk side to it that I feel really made it its own and really mature for its target audiences. And there's a lot of moments where this film gets ballsy. I mean, this is PG and they get away with a lot in this movie. A couple aliens get blown up in a pile of their blood. There's blood in some scenes. A character even gets his neck snapped. I was like, whoa, Jesus. And I gotta tip my hat to the writers and Don Bluth for giving the film its edge. And on top of that, this is a film that really goes through all the roots of going through the space genre areas that really move the film at a fast pace. And it's all exciting and pulls you in from the start. Whether it's the red planet with the weird bird or the space flights, there's always something around every corner in this movie. There's always a sense of excitement and fast-paced action that really makes the film so much fun to watch. And even the emotional parts are greatly handled. And it being animated, I think, makes it beyond anything I've seen in a live action film. So yeah, if you're someone who loves films like Star Wars or The Last Starfighter, as my friend Mike said, I think you'll get a lot out of this film. And even if you're pushing back on wanting to watch it because it's animated, push that feeling aside, because the edge that this film has, I think, will draw people in. Now, I know Don Bluth has said that he never was a sci-fi fan and just wanted to test himself making this film to step out of the boundaries he was in and kind of keep the studio afloat. And I know there's some revisionist history with people who have said Don Bluth does not like the film. That is far from the truth. The real truth is Don doesn't hate the film. He has mixed feelings on it due to a lot of factors with behind the scenes problems and working with a genre that he was not passionate about, because he's proud of the work he and his team put into the film. And that shows for someone who didn't want to be there. He's not phoning it in and adapts himself well to the genre. And I'll even go a step further and I'll say, I think this is some of his best work. Visually, it's got a distinct look and feel to it. It's a very creative looking film. It really is beyond anything I've seen before, even for Don Bluth. I appreciate that he didn't try to imitate any of DreamWorks or Pixar or Disney's works. I'm grateful the studio put that mandate there. The animation crew really went for with the creativity, whether it's the various planets they explore, the rundown junkyard-like ship that they find all the trash and the poor citizens living on. Beautiful use of hand-drawn animation and matte paintings. It really gives the film this grungy, humanity on the brink, no hope feel to the film that still feels Don Bluth while also doing something new. And I just feel he gets a lot out of the animation team, not just from the hand-drawn aspect, but also employing the use of matte paintings and CGI. And the film doesn't rely heavily on CGI, but it's mostly used for moments to enhance elements that were hand-drawn, like the space battles, the various moments involving the weird ice-like asteroids, and how they're being chased by the other ship, and they lead them into this colliding ice asteroids, and they can't see where they are. That I thought looked really cool. or to enhance the environment. And it's also some of Don's most ambitious directing too, like his use of the camera and how he was able to get this 3D like movement to it, and like how it follows the characters, establishes location. I've honestly never seen an animated film do that before, so its camera angles in this way worked. The only thing I noticed that was completely CGI was the dredge themselves, but I thought it worked for what they were going for, giving them this otherworldly, less than human vibe to them with this glassy structure and how they moved and talked. It's very otherworldly, but at the same time, I also found it really creative. And I'll say this, for someone who wasn't a sci-fi fan or directed action of this caliber, I thought Don and Gary did an amazing job with the action portions. Each are animated with energy. The combination of all things together really brings those moments to life with some really eye-catching moments that you can't look away from, like the moment when Corso finds Kale at the cafeteria and the dredge get there and they start that shootout and they propel out of the ship, or later on the moment on the Titan AE ship at the end and how they're going at it with one another. There is some real talent on display in this film that deserves to be acknowledged more. The creatures, the aliens, also have a unique design to them that really makes those moments every sci-fi fan's dream come true. Plentiful and just such a feast that you can't look away from. It's not completely straight-faced though, so don't worry about that, because there is some comedy to it that is really funny, and I think Dawn does a great job getting great comedic timing out of particular moments in the film and setting them up. It's really subtle too. Yeah, you have a naked Matt Damon in a scene, but it's not like the characters are bug-eyed, like, oh my god, he's got a big dick, or the camera's focusing on his ass. Despite that, it's very adult in how it approaches that. It's not overloaded on fat jokes and fart jokes, but rather the reactions of characters. And those moments are accompanied by a great score by Graham Revell. I know they wanted Hans Zimmer to do a score for it, but he turned it down, so they went to Graham. And I thought he did a wonderful job. Graham deserves much more love than he's been given as a composer, because I don't think his work is acknowledged as I feel it should be. And here especially, I think the score really accompanies the film's tone and location and adds even more excitement to the action that already starts with a beautiful animation. There is an aspect to the music that I know people are mixed on, and that's the licensed soundtrack, which you can tell looking at the list this was Fox's doing. As opposed to Don Bluth's. I've heard people say it ruins the film, it's Fox trying to be hip with the kids, and I'm gonna say right off the bat, I don't have a problem with it. I'm someone with a rebellious and punk rock personality to me, so the soundtrack ticked all the boxes for me. It made it stand out from other animated features, and even Don Bluth's library. With some trying so hard to imitate Disney soundtracks, it's nice to have a film that's just like using punk rock and giving it its own personality. You got people like Power Man 5000, Electricity, Fun Loving Criminals, The Wailing Souls, and I like the soundtrack. I like the Electricity song. I love Power Man 5000. I guess at the end of the day, it depends on the viewer's music preferences and what they like listening to, because you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. Now, what I'm saying here is not going to change Don Bluth's mind or Gary's mind on how he feels about the film, but regardless of the challenges, him and Gary did an amazing job with this film, and I think he should focus on the people who do like the film. I also think the cast does a great job. Matt Damon, it's nice to see him take on an animated film. I think he gives Kale a great presence with his performance. I like his smart-ass vibe he gave him in the opening, like his comments about the food and how I like them to kill my food before I actually eat it. That got a good laugh out of me. The more emotional scenes that he has worked with in live action translate well to those moments. He's not monotone or voicing it like he's trying out for a kid's show, but he's playing the character with a lot of energy, and I think Don gets a lot out of him with the range in his voice that contributes to the character arc. It really shows that he can do voice acting and does it really well in the recording booth. Drew Barrymore, I also think does great as Akima. I thought she gave the character this badass, sexy personality that could handle herself, like the scene in the jail where she beats up the other inmates and the other people are coming to rescue her and she's sitting on top of them like, hey guys. I think her and Matt Damon played well off each other. Both had great chemistry. You bought these two having a relationship. Some funny moments between the two, like when he walks in on her showering. That gave me a good laugh. And that scene's followed by a bittersweet moment with the two. Especially the ending when they're deciding what to name the new planet. He calls it Bob. And her reaction to that was funny. And just like Matt Damon, like I said, she does well with the emotional range that the story needed to have. Bill Pullman, always nice to see Bill Pullman. I like him as an actor. I think he does great here, playing a bit of a father figure for Cale as you find out he was friends with his dad. I like the moment when he teaches him to use the ship and they fly through that field with the weird creatures that light up. There is somewhere they do go with this character, and in order to talk about this, spoiler alert, he becomes a villain for a few seconds, and in those moments, I think Bill is able to show his range as a villain with this gruff, listen-to-me voice. I know the answer vibe in his voice as well, and how he goes off members of the crew. I think Bill delivered that side really well. And just made him a joy to watch. Nathan Lane, a very different role for him as he's playing the assistant to Bill Pullman. You usually see him as this smug but good-hearted character. Here, he's playing a dick that's stuck up. I thought he did that side well, though. I thought it was something different for him to play and step out of the good-hearted image he created and just how cocky he comes off in particular scenes. You want to slap the shit out of him. But that's the makings of a good performance, especially John Leguizamo, who I didn't even know that was him till I looked at the cast. I was like, holy shit, that's John Leguizamo. Unrecognizable in the voice, though, because he's the scientist of the group. He's got this squeaky voice to his character, but it didn't annoy me like I think some people think it would. But it shows how much of a chameleon John is, whether you look at his roles in The Pest or Spawn. He really disappears into those characters and puts himself in these roles and gives it his all. And here it's no different. Being the scientist that kind of is trying to figure out this whole thing, trying to figure out where the ship is. I thought he did that well. Janeane Garofalo is a hoot to watch as Stith, who is my favorite character in this movie. She gives this jockey, put work before anything else attitude to her character. Like when she first meets Cale and they almost get in a fight and she's like talking about, you think this is a pleasure cruise? And she throws a wrench towards them. That gave me a good laugh. She really gives this energized, high on caffeine sort of feel to her character and just steroid-induced sort of attitude to it that really makes Janeane stick out amongst the actors. I've always felt she was underrated. I think she's a better Sarah Silverman, even though I don't hate Sarah Silverman. Janeane Garofalo I always felt was funnier, though. Besides that, the other actors do well, too. I know Jim Brewer is a cook in the opening. He does well for what he's given, not really much to say. You also got Ron Perlman as Cale's dad in a couple scenes. It's Ron Perlman. He's great in whatever he does. Alex D. Linz as the young Cale does well for what he has to do. I know Tone Loc has a small role in the opening as the stepfather of Cale, who he's been looking after since the destruction of Earth. Fine, I guess, not really much to say. Despite that, the cast worked well with what they have, and there you have some great performances. But yeah, as you can tell, I love this movie, and I feel it deserves more than the fate that it got. Now, the only flaw I will say about the film, and putting up the spoiler again, it's where they have Bill Pullman's character suddenly decides to turn evil, and then at the end that's thrown out the window. While I do appreciate they shift him back to being the good guy and father figure to Cale, and I'm not as harsh on it because Bill Pullman does well with that role, the sudden shift of the character into that could have been expanded on a bit better because it feels very out of nowhere when that happens. Like, if they were going to have that moment, I really feel like they could have dropped a hint here or there that eventually led to that, because it's out of nowhere to a point you're just like, what? Where did that come from? Especially when he's built up as this nice guy throughout the film. It's an abrupt shift in character. I think they could have, had that a bit more explored in the story department. That's really my only issue with the film, because bottom line, Titan AE deserved better than what it got. It's fun. It's stunningly beautiful. It's a film that Don and Gary took a leap of faith to make, and while there were some scars, I feel they came out on top with a great product. I highly recommend you see Titan AE. It's probably one of the best films of 2000, if not the best animated film of 2000. I know we have Chicken Run, and I'm going to do a review of that because I saw it, but I don't think it'll top the lengths of this. But when it comes down to it, my final verdict for Tight AE is a 9.8 out of 10, and it deserves it, and therefore gets the Alexandra seal of approval. If you can look past the fact that this film is a leap of faith for Dawn and embrace it for what it is, you're gonna have a great time, because this film all around is a great action animated film that offers up the goods for fans of both genres. So yeah, that is my review for Tight AE, and next time I am working on my Resident Evil 3 Nemesis review. That review will be coming soon. I also have a review coming of Pokemon 2000. You'll see a review of that soon. I'm working on my Mission Impossible review, just filmed a bit of that more. Almost done with that, then Mission Impossible 2. And this next week, we're going to be finally checking out X-Men, so you guys will see my thoughts on that. So there's definitely a lot to come, and I'll update you guys as that gets forward. But for right now, I'll see you guys later. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of Tight AE. Did you guys enjoy the film like I did? Do you feel it deserved a bomb? I'd love to know you guys' thoughts. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.